Hi, I'm Dan Stueckle, and this is my blessed story. It occurred a couple of weeks ago when I went to High Cedars Golf Course, and I was trying to get my spring golf game in action, and I was getting ready to walk up to the first tee, and up comes walking another young man. His name was Jared, and we introduced ourselves to each other, and we got going, and first impressions, young kid, kind of rough around the edges a little bit maybe, and as we got to talking a little bit, he used the phrase, well, Lord willing. He had talked about some golf tournaments he'd played in, and he would really like to play in another one at some point. And so as we got to talking more and more throughout the round, the topic of church came up, and he was talking about the church that he and his wife go to, and he's a newlywed. He's only been married for about 6 months, and he said he had accepted the Lord but when he was 14 years old, and he's now 27. He explained to me about 6 months ago that his wife and him had kind of rededicated their lives to Christ, and but still had some things he was working on, and he admitted that completely to me. And he was very curious, and I had told him that my wife and I attend church here at Grace, and he was very curious about what that looked like. And he asked me at first, well, is that a Baptist church? And I said, well, it used to be, but now it's kind of an interdenominational church. And he kept asking some more questions, and a little bit later in the round, as we got talking more, he said, Dan, I got a question for you, and I want you to be really honest. And he goes, what do you think about drinking? And I kind of laughed, and I said, well, you know, Jared, I said, that's something that's kind of a gray area for a lot of people, and some people see no problem with it, some, have a problem with it. I said, it's not gonna be a deal breaker as far as your salvation goes, obviously. I said, but where I draw the line is if it becomes a problem for somebody, yeah, that's something they need to look at and something the Lord will work with them on. And a little bit later it rolls around and he goes, well, Dan, what do you think about tobacco use? And I said, well, kind of the same thing. The Lord wants us to be careful with our bodies, that he's part of who we are, and he wants us to take care of those. And so anything that would harm that, I would think you'd want to maybe take a look at that. And got a little bit further, and I said, honestly, Jared, that's not something that's gonna change your heart for God, but definitely something to look at. And then the last question, as we got towards the last hole, he comes up and he goes, Dan, what do you think about tattoos? And I said, well, Jared, I have one. It says Amazing Grace on it. It's a cross. And I said, God works with everybody different ways. And I said, there's lots of things we all need to work on. And I said, those are maybe some of the ones that were on your mind. And I said, the Lord's gonna work with you if he wants to change things. And Jared just kind of had a smile on his face as we walked on from there. And we got to the last hole, and we were finishing up the last hole. And as we were walking off the green, I said, Jared, would you like to pray before we part ways? And he said, well, yeah, I'd really love that. So we kind of walked off where we weren't going to get hit by the group behind us, and kind of bowed my head. And I said, Lord, I said, thank you for putting Jared and I in each other's path today, and just having us have a chance to talk with each other about you and our relationships. And I thank you for his curiosity, and I thank you that he's searching and trying to learn. And I said, just encourage Jared, Lord, make him change where you want him to change, and just grow him. And as I said amen, he was like, oh, thank you. He said, I appreciate you praying. And he goes, you made me tear up a little bit. And I reached over and kind of grabbed his hand and pulled him in. We kind of had our little bro hug at the end of the golf round. And I said, Jared, I wish you well, and hope we run into each other again. And that's my blessed moment. You just never know when cool things like that are going to happen. You get a chance to share with somebody.